uh, for my next act. He just called me old, I think, and truly I am old because I am here to induct Jackie Arute. 17 years ago, I inducted his father. That's pretty old. So as far as the Arutes go, this isn't my first rodeo. One of my earliest memories with the Arutes was the dinner that they had at the Old Valley's restaurant when Jack announced that he had bought the place from Mal Barlow. After all the announcements and the dinner and everything, Jack was kind of holding court in the bar, and we were all after dinner drinks and everything, and someone came by, I guess trying to be funny or something, and said, "What, Jack, no cigars?" Well, let me tell you, Jack sent somebody for cigars. So you knew right then and there auto racing in this area was going to get a little buffing up. Jackie Arute, I think, is a cause, and both a cause and effect of that very day. You know, you can look at Jackie on a national level, and you can look at Jackie, what he did locally. No question about it, Jackie had a lot to do with pumping up our parochial pride. You know, it was great to look at this guy on TV at the 500 and go, wow, you know, I knew that guy when he was just starting. And one of the things that I always loved about him, he was a real, honest-to-God, in-your-face journalist. Ask A.J. Foyt about the questions Jackie Arute will ask you. I really kind of enjoyed that. If there's something I hope rubbed off on him from me, it was that. But we're here more, I think, today to honor more than our own pride. I think Jackie came to Stafford from the University of Vermont, where he was, believe it or not, the mascot for the football team. I mean, I watched this idiot running around in a catamount uniform. You know, God. And he also attached himself to the aforementioned Kenny Squire. And I assume he was up there spending his old man's money, so sometime he went to class too. It was in Vermont. I digress here a little bit, but the thing about Jackie is when you see people walking by, or you hear somebody's name, somehow there's a story. You're back and you think of a story that involved Jackie. I saw Ronnie Narducci a little before, and one of the great stories was during the All-Star race at Catamount Stadium, which of course is just up the road from the University of Vermont. Ronnie got busted up a little bit and wound up in the hospital. And Jackie took Ronnie's dad back to the fraternity house at the University of Vermont. Now I can only imagine the effect that had on the son of an immigrant who grew up in Chester, Connecticut, which was probably the size of this hall. You know, I can just think of that. I remember it must have been really exciting for Gene. My point here is what I want to impress on you, what Jackie brought to New England racing when he came from Vermont. You know, I mean, he did have some advantages. The biggest one was your old man owning the place. But he came and he learned his lessons well from Kenny Squire, I think. Of course, the big deal is the announcing deal. First of all, he built a state-of-the-art thing at Stafford. But more than that, it's who he shared that announcer's booth with. I mean, look at the Stafford alumni on the national level doing auto racing. right now, the people who came out of Stafford and are announcing top-notch auto racing today. I think that's something, I think that makes him almost a trailblazer. And let me tell you what this guy did as far as changing media. The way the media was represented in the state, I mean, the press box that he ran, he thought he was the New York Yankees up there with and what he did for the modifieds, what he and his whole family did for the modifieds. Some people say they saved them. Well, at the risk of inventing Jackie's spleen, they did not save the modifieds. But I'll tell you what they did do. They shined an ever more brighter light on them. The modifieds were Jack's and Jackie's major concern. And I was thinking the other day, because I kind of was in that office a little bit, and we came up with all kinds of things, like the Grace of God and 400 horsepower and the Pinto Revolution and the Coupe Group, Well, Jackie came up with some of them, and what he didn't come up with, he hounded you until you did. He wasn't, his father used to go testator, which in Italian means stubborn. Well, I'll tell you what, he inherited that from his old man. Because what Jackie was just absolutely centered on making things new, and what is now commonplace at all New England racetracks as far as the media is concerned, was once brand new at Stafford Speedway. Another thing, this guy he was always looking for things different. And last year when Jackie inducted Sam Posey, I remember when Sam Posey came to Stafford and drove every division Stafford had. And it resulted in really a pretty good story. He was constantly looking for something different, for something new. Well, today this is another story. And Jackie, my friend, I'm equally proud to be part of it. We'd like to humble down here.
I want to give you a couple of postscripts for what he said. When Mr. Narducci ended up at my fraternity house, there were no illegitimate children. He did walk around all night with, "Oh my God." I want to give you another postscript, Peter. I worked at Stafford before my father bought it. I was the flagman. I was making $35 cash. My father buys the racetrack. I get up one morning eating my cornflakes and said, "Dad, your announcers suck." My father says, "You think so? You're fired from the flag stand. Get your fat butt upstairs." I got paid nothing. And as far as A.J. Foyt is concerned, there are probably, if they ever tear down the Indianapolis Motor Speedway garages, there's got to be at least 144 rubber snakes that he would throw at me. The Finoro family knows what I'm talking about. I'm really overwhelmed. And my brother Mark will say, "Yeah, bull crap, you never have." But when I was called, never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I would be on the receiving end of this accolade. I've had the great fortune and the honor to induct not only some really truly great racers, but some really dear friends. And I always looked at that was my job. That's what I do. Because even though guys like me, Mike Joy, etc., Mike Massaro, while we may have moved on from New England, you can never take New England out of us. And the one wonderful thing that I always had going for me was whether it was Paula and Eddie's father telling me when I was a young kid, "You know what, you're going to have to up your game. If you want to be an announcer, you're going to have to start asking better questions." Or if it was Bugsy Stevens, or Fred DeSero, or Teddy Christopher. I always felt when I would come home That's indeed what I was. I was home. And you allude to the first Ron Bouchard Award. Let me tell you the wonderful thing, and Bob Johnson and I had a little conversation about this, and Bones and I had a conversation about this. We were too stupid back then to know that we were swimming with sharks. We were also way too passionate and believed too much in the love affair that we were enjoying with motorsports to think there was anything wrong with winning the Talladega 500. After all, that was long before you raced for jet fuel. It was when you went down there with a dream and with a passion and you gave it all. And not necessarily out on the racetrack. It might be in the race shop, or it might be just the way Ricky Craven, who's going to join us in the class, laid it on the line at Darlington. But to me, the centering that wasn't any different than watching Randy LaJoy, his dad, Don LaJoy, or many of the great people that we've got in this, laying it on the line at Westboro, at Thompson, at Stafford. The abiding passion is the same. 17 years ago, my brother, Lisa, myself, our family, we really let the patriarch loose here on the Hall of Fame. And it kind of brought full circle one of the things that I think my father really believed in, and that was the future of racing. But I'll leave you with this story. My father used to always walk in, and you remember this, Peter, he'd say, okay, he'd say, Jackie, what do you got playing at the circus tonight? Because he was a diehard. Well, I came up with this wonderful idea. I could book Evel Knievel. And I convinced him, and I said, Dad, Evel Knievel, next year he's going to jump the Snake River. I don't care. The only way I got Evel Knievel booked is Frank Ferrara convinced him that he didn't have to run the modifieds that night. We'd run a 50-lap midget race with NEMA. The night dawns, we got Evel Knievel, we got the NEMA midgets, they run, everything is going great. We got people hanging off the rafters. My father, whose middle name was Butt, you did a good job, Butt, never once. He's riding around his little motorcycle, and all of a sudden, we got the biggest crowd, not since a Spring Sizzler, ever at Stafford on a Friday night. And we sold a lot of beer. 10 o'clock becomes 10:30, becomes 11 o'clock, and Evel Knievel is still locked in his trailer. As my father rides up on his motorcycle and says, you really screwed the pooch this time, Jackie. So anyways, we have these plywood because Evel said he couldn't do it on the racetrack. He finally comes out, gives us the speech about not doing drugs, and how he told us how he had broken every bone in his body, and how now he was going to astonish us with this feat. He made one run down the plywood and rode up to the start-finish line and said, I can't make the jump. This is the passion that my father had and the pride that he had in Stafford. He grabbed Evel Knievel's leather lapels and pulled him over the handlebars and said, listen, you son of a bitch. Either you make this jump or you're going to teach me how to ride that damn motorcycle, because they're going to burn my stands down. Fast forward 20 years later, I'm at the SEMA show with Weld Wheels, and we're signing autographs, and a guy walks by, and it's Evel Knievel. And he sees my little placard, and he says, you aren't Jack Arute. And I says, no, I really am. He says, no, you're not. You're too young to be Jack Arute. I know Jack Arute. He's the craziest son of a bitch I ever met in my life. I know the one thing my father would want to say is, congratulations, Jackie, but he'd also want to remind each and every one of you, as he did to a lot of people, you see the kid? He'd go, I'm the original. Jackie's just a cheap imitation from Japan. Thank you.